right. Hello, everyone in the future. This is the module proposal feedback call. So we'll just quickly go through some of the things we've been doing with regard to modules. We're currently actually in person, doing a lot of in-person thing, doing some working on that on modules, and that's been quite good progress. So we'll talk about what progress we've made. Talk a little bit about some of the nuances which we've encountered, which is kind of interesting things, and some stuff around deployment and our plans there. Yes, so progress. Yeah, we've landed a bunch of stuff in the core repo. Yeah, it's all experimental. And we're keeping track of stuff that will need to be documented eventually. We're not documenting everything as it goes along to minimize churn. And we're working on a server implementation, which will basically be driven. You'll be able to upload modules through a GitHub app rather than directly, because that simplifies a bunch of stuff from our perspective. And that will give you an experience not unakin to that which you get from Go when you tag a repo and it automatically ends up available as a module. And we will need some tests to assure us that it was actually working. So that's good. We want that to be there. So yeah, some highlights from the thing. These are in Git log order, so most recent first. So going from the end, yeah. So we've got some package that knows how to read and write modules from the OCI registry. Then we've updated QLoad to know how to talk to an OCI registry. We've got a new notion of Q experiment, which is how we're going to be able to enable modules and other potential experimental features in the Q command. And now, so QLoad, the config.registry field is now an interface, an OCI registry interface, which is a proxy for this is how you talk to an OCI registry. So you'll be able to provide your own implementation, and QLoad will CMDQ will make its own registry based on whatever configuration that format and specification the user has made. And yeah, so we've got a work in progress doc inside internal mod, which is keeping track of the things we need to update in documentation in the future. So just to remind people, yeah, we're having a public-private split between two registries is an important use case, and in the future, to do that, we'll have some sort of configuration to be designed that will be able to say how that split takes place. But on a per registry basis, like, so for example, if you're talking to a particular one of your own registries, that will be by the sort of standard OCI Docker standard of like, we read Docker config.json. That's where the authorization information is configured. So that's just the same as you should be used to if you're already using OCI registries. Everything is talking this OCI protocol, no matter whether you're talking to your local registry or the global central registry. It's same protocol. Certainly for downloading, uploading, there might be differences. We'll see. There's certainly differences in the moment because you won't be able to upload directly to the central registry. That will be done by the GitHub app. Yeah, in terms of layout, you might, certainly in many cases, you might not have the ability to write to any namespace, any repository namespace inside the OCI server. Usually, you have access to some subset, some prefixed set of the repositories. So that sounded like somebody got a hand up. Can I?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to clarify something you said on the previous slide, You said you won't be able to upload directly. You'll need to go via the GitHub app. That is the case initially. It will follow later on that for the central registry, we will have a published step. It won't always be the case that you can only do things via the GitHub app. Just to clarify.
That's indeed, this is a temporary limitation, yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but just wanted to get that clear.
Yep. So where a given module is, depends on what repositories you might have access to, and some registries might have limitations in terms of the repository names that they allow. But a common thing is here's an example where we might be we might have a configuration which says for modules inside acme.com. So this registry configuration on the right hand side is fictional. We haven't designed this yet. This is like, oh, some configuration might possibly look like this. Anything, all modules under acme.com come from registry.acme.com/internal/q, which means that if to form a repository name for a module, you basically append the module name to that internal/q. So you can see at the top level, oops, I can't select, that would be a URL that was formed from that. So registry.acme.com, and that's like a standard OCI endpoint. And so you've got internal/q, and then you've got the entire module name, and then manifest/v1.2.3, which is how you would actually, how under the surface it would be doing the HTTP logic. And if you, so essentially you've got a registry reference, if you like, which looks similar to a Docker repository reference, which has the host name and the prefix that you form modules from. So one interesting thing about this is that you need to set your configuration correctly for the given registry. So like if you're talking to your own registry.acme.com, you need to know, the client needs to know that the appropriate prefix to use is internal q, which puts quite a lot of responsibility on the client to get that right. So there is a possibility in the future, certainly to start with, and for naive servers, naive things, maybe there's certainly that option. That probably always has to remain some possibility, but it would be nice in future if perhaps you could have put some file in a well-known place, some configuration file from which the client can retrieve to say, this is the convention that you're going to use in this server. And that's just a vague thought for the future, because there are other possibilities for different ways that modules might be stored, and some conventions, so there might not always be the format that we've got at the moment, depending on name limitations and that kind of thing. So sorry, yeah, you've got a hand up.
Yeah, just to say that one of the main motivations for this is because I just made a comment in the chat that no such config will be required for the central registry. That's the case because we will be in control of the central registry. The thing the Q command is not in control of is when someone wants to use their own registry, what limitations or storage layout decisions, etc., within a given company might exist.
Exactly.
And so it may even be a much more complicated layout strategy than the simple one that we put forward there with a prefix. And as such, we can't assume that every company registry will put all Q things at /Q, for example, necessarily. It might well prove to be the case that actually people are comfortable putting all stuff at /Q, but I don't think we can make that assumption. So hence one of the main motivators, I think, Roger, if that's right, as to why.
Well, we certainly know that for certain, like the Google Container Registry, you can't put stuff in /Q because the first 3 elements of the repository namespace are fixed for a given organization and the given. So you definitely can't put stuff at /q, and that does point to a limitation. Like, you can't have something at a well-known place because you don't know where to look for that well-known place, because you need so it's an interesting idea to find the configuration from the registry, but I don't know whether it's actually feasible in practice. We'll have to explore that in the future. So it's a future option. So to actually give ourselves confidence that all this stuff is going to work when put together, we're planning to some end-to-end tests, and there are going to be lots of changes, obviously, and we want to give ourselves fullest confidence and everyone else that everything's going to work. So we want some kinds of tests, integration or otherwise, to integrate. Obviously, we're writing unit tests, but how do we gain confidence that our stuff actually works when deployed? And this is an interesting open question as to what the best way to do that is. So that's something we'll be working towards. And one of the sort of inputs to that is really, what scenarios do we want to test and how do we specify those? And we think that maybe Q is quite a nice, potentially a nice way to specify those kinds of tests. Although again, we haven't, there's a bunch of design to be done. So like, what do our tests actually look like? And maybe some kind of tools flow driven type thing might actually work out quite nicely for running those tests. But this is all very hand wavy as now, but for now, but we definitely want some tests to ensure that actually things are really working in production, or will work in production. And there's a bunch of documentation still to be done, and we're probably going to publish. So at the moment we have V2, which then we added to talk about OCI. There's actually particular storage formats and OCI in particular, and we think that actually, like Tony suggested, and I think this is a good idea, let's call it V3, even though technically it's backward compatible, but it's actually a very significant step forward. So that we can call it V3, and then that we say that V3 includes all the OCI changes and that sort of thing. And more
than anything, it gives us a single place to point to where people can see the sort of the consolidated new version of things.
Yeah, and we'll publish that in a GitHub discussion at some point, not too long. And so next stages, we're landing on initial changes in Qlang. There's still a bunch of stuff to go there, like for example Qmod tidy, and a bunch of other stuff which basically polishes up what we've got landed already, and a simple initial central registry implementation, which currently, although this is kind of actually an implementation detail, I think we're thinking of, we're not writing a full registry from scratch. We're basically putting a proxy in front of an initial registry service, and writing some tests, as I talked about. And I suspect there aren't going to be any questions. Any questions, Paul or Dan?
If anybody has any afterwards, they can follow up in the GitHub discussion we created for this session. Otherwise, it's a bit of a wrap. A nice short one today. We'll crack on with the pushing up some more modules changes.
Brilliant. All right.
For anyone who joins us next time, see you then.